Let's see. Good afternoon. I wanted to make sure it was after 12 o'clock. We're waiting just a couple minutes because we know some students are making their way through the Dia de los Muertos. I need to work on my Spanish, I know that. Celebration out in the lobby. But we'll go ahead and get started. Really excited to have Zach Horton with us today. I have heard from several of our alums, you got to get Zach on campus. And so I was thrilled when I reached out and he was willing to come and spend some time with us today. So welcome, Zach, to campus, to the Mike Cottrell College of Business and our Cottrell Speaker Series. Let me give you a little bit about his bio, and I know he's going to tell you more when he does his presentation. Really super excited to hear from him. Zach grew up in Middle Georgia and is very familiar with UNG. His father, mother, grandfather, and his mother's with us, hello, and other family members are proud alumni. Unfortunately, he didn't see the light of day and he went to Auburn. I don't know what that's about. But he got a degree in, I know. Hey, at least he said bad decision, right? Well, maybe because I still haven't taught our faculty into having an international business degree. I'm working on that still. But he majored in international business with a focus in marketing and Spanish. He's here today to share an amazing journey in which he dealt with adversity and challenges in his personal life that led him to start a small business that's grown over 400% in the first 2 years. Pretty phenomenal. His strong faith, positive outlook, and willingness to accept a challenge is what's made him the successful entrepreneur that he is today. He's married to his wonderful wife, Jessie, and they're expecting their first baby in January. So very exciting time for him. So we just hired a new director of entrepreneurship and innovation, and I'm talking to him about what he's going to do on the Gainesville campus. So you're going to hear from a real entrepreneur today, and hopefully we can get him back to help maybe mentor some of our students along the way. So Zach, please join us up here, and so excited to have you with us. All right. Yeah, microphone's right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here to speak to you guys. And as she said, I did sadly go to Auburn. I know you're not. Thank you. I mean, we got one thing right. We did win a national championship in there. I know Georgia's won a couple now. I get it. So, but I did. I graduated from Auburn in 2012. And about that time, I moved directly to Atlanta for work. I started working up there. As Mary told you guys, I have a degree in international business with a focus in marketing and Spanish. My father, UNG grad, or at that time it was North Georgia College, he, as a third-generation business owner in our town in Middle Georgia, Houston County, and I always wanted to go into business with him and ultimately take over. That had always been my goal. That was my desire in going to Auburn, in studying business. That's what I wanted to do. I have 2 younger siblings, and I was his only child who wanted anything to do with his business. He was very excited for me to do that. I graduated, but I wanted to get a little time working somewhere else. So I moved up to Atlanta and started working up there. About that time, I began having really intense migraines. They would often get so bad I would lose all sense of equilibrium. My vision would flicker in and out, and I'd start vomiting. I was in my new hire trial work period at my job up there, and in my first 3 months, they had to send me home. I believe it was over 10 times because I started throwing up from migraines. I was a new hire. They decided that this wasn't working for them. This was not what they had signed up for. And they ended up letting me go. Like I said, my dad has that business in Middle Georgia. He said, listen, you come back here, you can work for me. If you find another job up there, great. If not, we'll just get your lease finished out and you can move back here. So I came back to Middle Georgia and started working for my dad. That was in the fall of 2012. Throughout the end of 2012, that was probably November, December in there, I was just still having those migraines. A lot of things were going on. And one day I was at work, and my mom called me while I was at work. She said, listen, I know you're heading home tonight before your dad. Will you call me when you head home? I may need you to stop for me. I said, sure. I got off work. I called my mom. She said, nope, you're good. I got by the store. Go on and head home. I said, okay, I'm headed home. At that time, his store was about 15 minutes from our house. An hour later, I pulled in our driveway. My mom says, I thought you were headed home. Where were you? I said, well, I was. I said, but I've been telling y'all my vision does something weird with these migraines, and it flickers in and out. I said, I was driving, and it went black, and this time it was gone for about 45 minutes. Well, guys, I did tell y'all I went to Auburn, a little slow on the uptake. She said, Zach, I think you need to see a doctor. This is not normal. I agreed with my mom. We went to see a doctor the next day. She got on the phone, got me an appointment with an ophthalmologist. This is at the end of February 2013. we go to see this ophthalmologist. He did a number of tests, looked in the back of my eye. He saw what they call papilledema of the optic nerve. He explained to me and my mom that that is a swollen optic nerve. It could be any number of things that are causing that. It was outside of his scope of practice. I was going to have to see a neurologist to get to the bottom of it. So we go to see a neurologist a couple days later. My mom drives me up there. They didn't want to let me drive after my vision disappeared, imagine that. But get up there to see this neurologist. He comes in the room. He informed my mom and I that he really would not be able to tell us anything until he got a CT scan, an MRI, and he wanted to do a lumbar puncture to rule out an infection in my cerebral spinal fluid. So quickest way to get this done was just to admit me to the hospital and knock him out. Boom, boom, boom. So we made the decision, get admitted. They took me down. They did the CT scan. They did the MRI. Again, my mom and I are just sitting in a hospital room waiting. My dad was at work. We're not thinking anything too serious is going on. I was a little bit heavier than I am now, but I'm sitting in a hospital bed in that room, and this is exactly how the doctor who we thought was coming in to do a lumbar puncture entered the room. Mr. Horton, I thought I was coming in here today to do a lumbar puncture on a 23-year-old obese male. I will not be doing that. You have a brain tumor. It is inoperable, but I will send a neurosurgeon to see you shortly. She turned around and she left the room. Now, do you think I had some questions? Yeah. I was about 7 months out of college, and I can promise you that did not factor into my plan for my life. And that lady just turned around and left the room. Second thing, I knew I was fluffy. She didn't have to tell me that. Just throw that out there and walk out. I mean, it's crazy. But that set us on a road. The next people who came in that room were a nurse and a PA for the neurosurgeon. They explained to me that based on the shape of my tumor, the neurosurgeon did not believe it was cancerous. What he wanted to do, though, was drill a hole, feed a tube down into my third ventricle, which surrounds your brainstem, because my brain tumor sat right in the middle of that ventricle, blocking the flow of cerebral spinal fluid, causing that ventricle to swell up. That was putting pressure on my optic nerve, causing my vision to go in and out. It was what was causing the migraines, and it had messed with some hormone levels. It really had done a large number of things to my body. So he explained they wanted to put in a shunt, which would be drill a hole, feed a tube down into that ventricle, then run that tube under my skin, down into my abdominal cavity. It would allow that cerebral spinal fluid to drain and be reabsorbed by my body. So we thought, okay, they've explained this well, we'll go ahead and do this surgery. They did that very first surgery. I had a massive seizure on the operating table. It was so severe that my neurosurgeon actually went to my parents, my grandparents, and my siblings and told them he did not know if I would be okay when I woke up. I came out of surgery. I was okay. I spent a couple nights in the neuro ICU unit, and I got released to go home on a Wednesday. We go home. We're thinking, okay, this was a horrible situation, but at least we've got it handled. We're going to move forward. Just give it about 48 hours. Sometime that Friday morning, my shunt failed, meaning that it quit draining the fluid that was in that ventricle. That ventricle started swelling very rapidly. I was in agonizing pain. I was vomiting. I was talking completely out of my head, making no sense. My vision was gone. My parents knew something very bad was going on. They rushed me back to the hospital up in Macon. Get up there, they learned that my surgeon is out of town at a medical conference. The surgeon who was on call came in the room and informed them that he did not believe this was a life or death situation. He wanted to wait to operate. They waited from Friday until Monday to operate. I woke up from surgery that Monday. I am now blind. That is the first week of March 2013, I believe. Throughout March and April, we went to see a number of specialists. I finally got in with a neuro-ophthalmologist up at Emory. We went up to see him. He did a lot of tests. He actually asked my parents and I if we'd be willing to wait to be his last patients of the day because he really wanted to take some time with us. He came in the room and explained to me and my parents that based on what happened to my optic nerve by that buildup of pressure, I would never see light again. That was in April of 2013. So here's another really horrible situation, but at least we've got the tumor handled. I guess I can learn to live with these things. Fast forward just a couple more weeks, shunt number 2 failed. All those things start happening again. My parents rushed me back up to Macon. I ended up having an infection in my cerebral spinal fluid. They could not do another shunt, so they had me hooked up to an external valve. I told you guys I was fluffy, and I was in the middle of a hamburger up there one day, and I was loving it. just like that, in the middle of that hamburger, my body shut down. I started choking. I could not finish swallowing what I was eating. And I actually slipped into a coma, and I did not wake up for the next 20 months. I was 23 when I went to sleep. I was 25 when I woke up. Throughout that 20 months, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. My neurosurgeon, like I said, he could not figure out what was going on. The only thing he could think of is maybe this tumor is growing. He said, we got to get radiation done. They make all the arrangements to get me sent up to Emory. Now, I have 2 younger siblings. At that time, my sister was a freshman in high school. She couldn't drive. So one of my parents had to be with her. My dad was actually with me as I'm getting transferred up there at Emory. Been a little over a week since I'd had any food. My dad's talking to the neurosurgeon, and he asked him, what about a feeding tube? The neurosurgeon at Emory explained to my dad he didn't want to give me a feeding tube. My dad asked him, why not? He said, Mr. Horton, your son doesn't have more than a month or 2 to live. You and your wife need to let him go. My dad said he could have thrown that little man out that window. He said, I wouldn't have lost any sleep over it. Because I will tell you, that man that day didn't treat my father as a human being, much less me, his patient. He had no hope of me surviving. As I told you guys, during that 20 months, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. I believe my total number of shunt failures was 13. My longest stay in the neuro ICU was 93 days. I've had 3 gram-negative infections in my cerebral spinal fluid. Apparently, it has a pretty high mortality rate, and I've had it 3 times. They have no medical explanation for why I woke up. They have no medical explanation for why my vision is returning. I can now see silhouettes and objects, colors, and they can't explain why. I will tell you guys, I woke up on Christmas Day, 2014. 16 days before my younger brother was getting married. And I woke up. Jesus had a different plan for me than what I had planned for me. But he never gave up on me, and neither did my family. They held hope that I was going to wake up, and I did. Throughout that year, I woke up Christmas Day 2014, throughout 2015 and 2016, I had to relearn everything. I had to learn how to feed myself, clean myself, dress myself, walk. I remember I was very contracted over. I will never forget it. My parents would come in the room, and my dad is not the most sensitive of individuals. But he would come in the room and he'd say, Zach, hold your head up. Because I was contracted over, and this, to me, felt like I was sitting straight. But my dad would come in the room and he'd say, Zach, hold your head up. I had to learn just to sit up straight because it wasn't normal to my body. I had to relearn how to walk. All those things. It was not easy. There were a lot of days there I was very frustrated. My mom can attest. There were a lot of days they were very frustrated because it's things that I had done my whole life, and I'm having to relearn them all. Throughout 2016 and into 2017, my mom started doing some research. Because there I was. I'd been a fresh college graduate when all this happened. I had a plan for my life. They wanted me to still have a life. I wanted a life, and I needed to learn how to do some things. She was able to get me in a program through the state of Georgia, Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation. And they came in, they taught me how to navigate the world as a blind individual. They taught me how to modify my environment in the house, taught us how to do certain things so I could use the stovetop or the oven or the microwave, the refrigerator, how to begin doing these things as a blind individual. And oddly enough, they began teaching me how to use a computer. Well, my computer trainer, who started coming to my house, was a blind man. He had been blind since the age of 6, but he took a personal interest in me. And he meant he was going to get me taught up. And he did. He made sure I knew how to use that computer. He encouraged me to start learning Braille, which I don't use very much at all, because oddly enough, we live in a technological age. You don't need it that much anymore. But he encouraged me. He got behind me, and he told me that I could do anything I wanted to. He had been blind since the age of 6 years old. He had married a woman who could see. They'd had 2 children. Oddly enough, when his children were in high school, she had gone blind. So he and his wife are both fully blind, and they raised 2 children. I started thinking, you know what? My life isn't over. About that same time, I began talking to a friend of mine from high school who owns a shelling company. He had started a pecan shelling company in Fort Valley, Georgia. His dad owned a number of pecan trees, and he had some friends who also owned pecan trees. And he said, you know, there's an opportunity here. There's a market here. Well, he realized that there is a large market for pecans in the Northeast. Well, in the Northeast of America, there is a large amount of Jewish residents. Pecans have got to be organic and they've got to be kosher. So he created a market in Middle Georgia for organic and kosher pecans. He has a rabbi who comes into his facility, ensures that they have not touched any unclean item, and they are blessed, and they're sent out. So I'm talking to him. I was trying to get a feel for exactly what he was doing. I said, Tom, I really think there's an opportunity here. I said, I've always wanted to own my own business. I could sell some of these pecans in my dad's store. He said, yeah, man, I'd love to help you out. Yeah, I'll give you an opportunity. So he started selling pecans for me, or to me. I simply started out, now I did call them, I'm from Middle Georgia. So where I come from, we still call them pecans sometimes. So I called them blind man's pecans. That's what I called them. I would sit in my dad's store and I'd say, does anybody want some blind man's pecans? And I'd give out samples. And they sold really well that year. Well, about that same time, I actually met the woman who is now my wife, and I began describing to her how I wanted to really begin to develop this business. And that I really wanted to try to develop a business, and I had an idea. I said, well, you've heard the saying, even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes. I said, I think I want to go with Blind Squirrel Nut Company. My wife said, I think that's good. So then I started telling her, I said, I'd love to get a picture of a squirrel wearing some sunglasses, holding a pecan or something. I think it'd be cute. And over the top, we could say, Blind Squirrel Nut Company. So my wife and my sister, they originally began working on this, and they kind of developed me a little label that went with it. And last year was the first year that I really utilized that label. But I was able to get some stickers printed and get that on a bag. Through that process, conversations with my wife, my family, I was able to start a website and get that going. Last year, simply by having that label on my bag, it got me visibility I could not have imagined. The local news stations out of Macon, Georgia, both of them, the Fox station and the CBS station, both decided they wanted to do news stories on me. Through that process, it got into the hands of a United States Senator for the state of Georgia, and he wanted to know if it would be okay with me if he honored me on the United States Senate floor for starting this company as a blind individual, the success that I had had in creating the company, and my overall story of overcoming adversity. I said, absolutely. That event alone opened doors that I would not have imagined could have been opened. Throughout this process, I have learned more about myself, more about other people, and more about the world than I could have ever imagined. I will tell you guys, as business students, it's not easy. It's not always fun, but it is rewarding. I have always wanted to own my own business. It was a very serious passion of mine. It's what I wanted to do. It's what I grew up in. I knew it from an early age. My world has changed a little bit, so I had to find a different way to do it. But this offered me an amazing opportunity. Our pecans, they are all grown in Middle Georgia. As I was explaining earlier, they are certified kosher. Well, we found a little cannery in Alabama that we're able to send these pecans over to. And this year we're carrying 5 different styles. When I first started, all I sold was regular shelled pecans. I now have chocolate covered, sweet Georgia heat, praline candy coated. I have a roasted and salted, and then I have our traditional regular, which you can bake with. My sales, I have grown over 450% in 2 years' time in simply the volume that I've sold. I am hoping and praying that it can continue to do so. This has been a passion of mine. It is something I would love to do full time, but it's got to be something that can support my wife and I. As I said earlier, we're expecting our first child. She is 7 months pregnant. We got a baby on the way. I'm terrified of what the world's going to cost me from now on because nothing's getting cheaper. It's all getting more expensive. So it is something that I'm very passionate about. Every single one of you, no matter what happens in your life, for those of you who are students, for those of you who aren't students, we all face various trials, various adversities. But it's what happens when you're squeezed, that's what comes out. I told Miss Gowan earlier, said, you either laugh or you cry when something bad happens. Personally, I'd rather laugh. Crying doesn't get me anywhere. A good laugh, that'll set you straight. So I try to laugh. I love a blind joke. Nobody ever sees them coming. But it doesn't matter what's in front of you, what's coming, what's behind you. We can all move forward. Every single one of you guys, with hard work, with determination. You may not be able to always make it happen on your own, but if you'll trust in yourself, you trust in the Lord, trust in those around you who believe in you, you can accomplish what you set your mind to. The world is your oyster. You have more opportunities than you ever think you will. Now, for me, as a blind individual, I would be lying if I said it's easy to do when you're blind. It's not. For me, the struggles are obviously visual. The packaging that I create, my website, all those things. I can have the vision in my mind because I was 23 when I went blind. I know what things looked like 10 years ago. Don't know what they look like anymore. But I had a vision. Well, I began describing that, and my wife, she's really good at making it come to reality. And she helped me, and she's helped me really design and develop this label. But for me, the logistics side of things are hard. Just yesterday, my pecans got finished for the year. I can't load up in a truck and go pick up my pecans because I'm blind, and the state of Georgia said, Zach, you can't drive. Which honestly, I'm just going to let you guys know that's beneficial for you. My mom will argue that I wasn't a great driver when I could see. I'm even worse now. I'm just telling you that. But my mom had to get in her car and drive 35 minutes to load up her SUV with over 30 cases of pecans and still couldn't get all of them. They're now going to have to deliver the rest of them later this week. Those are things that I could do when I could see. The dropping everything to run to the post office, to run to FedEx, to run to whatever, because you had somebody call and they say, I need 3 cases of nuts and I need them shipped tomorrow. Can you get them to me? That has fallen on my wife. It's fallen on my mom. It's fallen on others around me to help me out in that aspect. What I will tell you guys is, I say it all the time. I work full time at the hospital in our county, in Houston County, Houston Healthcare. And I say it all the time to the classes that I teach there. I'm the customer service trainer. I teach people how to be nice to people. It's easy to do when you can't see. Just smile and tell them thank you. That's it. I tell them all the time, there's more than one way to skin a cat. It may not look the way the world thinks it looks. You may not do the things the way the world thinks you should do them. But there is always more than one way to make things happen. I truly believe we're limited by our own, we limit ourselves, not our circumstances limit us. I know that Jesus had a plan for my life. I wouldn't be standing here in front of you today if he didn't. Because medically speaking, I shouldn't be alive right now. Medically speaking, that brain tumor, nothing should have happened to it. But just so y'all know, it's no longer in my head and they can't explain where it went. They have done the scan multiple times and they have no medical explanation for how it could have possibly disappeared. Jesus has been in my story from the get-go. I believe he has a plan for me, for this company, and for me even being here speaking with you today. What my hope and my goal is I want to see my brand, my story reach as many people as possible because it is a unique story. But most importantly, if I could get one thing across to anybody is you can still accomplish your dreams. Work hard. Have faith. Trust in yourself. Trust in your friends and your family. Most importantly to me, my faith is a huge part of how I've made it through what I made it through. It's not easy. It's not fun. My mom has seen me get so frustrated that she's seen me break down and cry. My wife has seen me get so frustrated with the way that the world treats me that I break down and cry. It can get very, very hard. But we can always move forward. Every single one of us have that opportunity. I will tell you guys that since I've started this company, initially, my profit margins were very, very small. I think I was averaging like 15 to 18%. As of this year, the average profit margin I have on my pecans is 34% because I've been able to streamline my process and make it just that much easier. Last year, my wife sat and put 1,800 stickers on bags by hand. This year, we got pretty bags that look good. And it only cost me 2 cents more per bag, but it saved her a whole lot of time. You're only limited by your circumstances if you allow them to limit you. That would be what I would encourage you guys who are students. You never know what may happen to you. We all face various trials, various adversities, but you can always move forward. One step at a time, one day at a time, one moment at a time, and the world can really be your oyster. You can have opportunities you would have never imagined possible. My story is very unique. I would not wish it upon anybody in the world, but I wouldn't change it for the world. Through the process, I met my wife. I was convinced for the longest time, after I woke up from a coma, there's no way I would ever get married because who wants a blind guy in a wheelchair? I was in a wheelchair for 2 years. Well, I met my wife, and she told me on the first date when she picked me up, we hadn't even made it 3 minutes down the road. She said, Zach, I do want to tell you, just so you know, this is my first blind date. And I thought to myself, I was like, Lord, I like this one. This is the one. I like this one. She's gotten frustrated through the process. It's not always easy for her either. But she's seen me do things she would have never imagined that I'd be able to do. People still ask her all the time, wait, you don't clean your bathrooms? She said, I ain't cleaned a bathroom since we bought our house. I clean the showers, I clean the sinks, I clean the tub, I clean the toilets. That's something I can take off her plate. They're trying to figure out, how does a blind guy? I said, it doesn't matter if it looks dirty. I clean the whole thing from top to bottom. You're only limited if you let yourself be limited. What you really work for, what you strive for, can be possible. And if you'll trust in the Lord, He can make things happen that you would never imagine were a possibility. So that's my encouragement to you guys. The opportunities I've had through this process have been endless. They've been open doors I would have never I couldn't have imagined myself being here talking to you guys today. But through this process, through this journey, this door opened, and I just want to walk through it. That's all I want to do is continue moving forward, continue growing, continue supporting my family, continue giving to the Lord, continue giving back, continue encouraging people like you guys. Because I believe I went through what I went through for a reason, and I believe I survived what I survived for a reason. They can't explain why, but I'll tell you right now, Jesus had a different plan. Medically speaking, I shouldn't be standing here today in front of you, yet God. So that's my encouragement to all of you students out there, to those of you who are still studying. It feels like just yesterday I was in high school. I don't feel it's possible that I could be 34 years old now. It blows my mind. I was 23 when I went blind. I've now been blind almost 11 years. You never know what may come your way. I pray to God none of you ever go through anything like I have gone through. But should you find yourself in that situation, don't give up. Don't give up hope. Trust in yourself. Work hard. Dream big. And continue to make things happen. You could have opportunities that you never imagined. And all of you have that opportunity. Most importantly, if for some reason you do not believe in the Lord and you would like to talk to me about it after I leave here today, please get in touch with me before you leave. I got a card. I'd be glad to talk to you. Because I'm telling you, He's got a plan for every single one of you, even if you don't know He has a plan for you. He does. So thank y'all for the opportunity to speak with you guys today. Are there any questions for me? Any questions about the company, what I went through, my story, anything? I'm an open book. I love to talk.
While y'all are thinking about it, there's three things I think were big takeaways, Zach. One, authenticity, resilience, and opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You own who you are, you're authentic about that, and you're not afraid you showed us how important resilience is, and we know that's one of the best traits for people to be successful. And then great entrepreneurial, you saw an opportunity and took advantage of it.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing all that. Any questions? Come on, don't be shy. They're coming up.
Okay.
And we have about 40 folks on in the Delania campus too. So Laura, come on up.
So we can purchase it at your on your website, but are there any Atlanta stores where we can purchase your product yet?
Currently not as of right now. That is another big thing that's hard for me. I do, as I said, I work full time. That is so I can provide insurance for my wife and I. We're expecting a baby, and healthcare ain't cheap. Just so y'all know, healthcare is not cheap. And once you turn 25, 26, it's on you. I'm just letting you guys know it's coming. So I have to be able to provide insurance. So I do work full time. With that being the case, it's really hard for me to go out and hit the road, hit the pavement. I've had the opportunity to get my pecans in some various locations. I had some up in Blue Ridge last year. I've had the opportunity to have them in my dad's store. I sell online. I'm really hoping to expand and get them into that opportunity, into that market. But right now, logistically, it's really hard for me to make those sales presentations. I do have a church that does them out of North Georgia. I believe they sold just as fundraiser for them. That's a great opportunity. I really would love to get into some more churches, some more schools as fundraising opportunities, because it's a great markup for them and it's a great opportunity for me. It gets the visibility. But no, as of right now, the only physical location where we sell them other than at market events and stuff like that is in my father's store in Houston County. But you can order online. Currently, we do not have the order button working, but you place orders by, it gives you my email address. Just email me, I'll get them to you.
Okay, and what's your father's store?
It's called The Warehouse.
Okay,
It is in Warner Robins, Georgia.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like there's going to be an opportunity down the road for you to hire one of our professional sales students as an intern to help you with that.
I would gladly do that. I would gladly hire an intern. Yes, it'd be a great opportunity.
Somebody else had a question.
Oh, thank you.
Your location?
So Zach, you talked about having an interest in your dad's business growing up. You have a sister and a brother who had no interest in that business whatsoever. You've obviously got what we like to call the entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Right.
And one of the teachers up here, one of our good friends, used to use the term a serial entrepreneur, okay? Why is it that you think that you got that? And what makes someone have an entrepreneurial spirit versus someone growing up in the same household who doesn't? And what is an entrepreneurial spirit?
I would say I don't want to be locked into a 8-to-5 job where this is the highest I can go. With it being entrepreneurial, my limits are only set by what I can achieve and what the Lord allows me to do. That's a whole different ballgame than knowing, okay, I'm going to show up every day for 40 hours this week and I get a check every 2 weeks. I wanted something more. I've always had a sales spirit too. My mom's always said I could sell water to an Eskimo. So, okay. She's like, they're just going to make ice with it. Mom, they're Eskimos. There's ice all around. But I have that spirit. I've always had that heart. It's what drives me. I thrive in it. I love it. My wife, it drives her nuts. We've done a lot of these market days in Middle Georgia, just sitting out with the table, with my tablecloth on it, selling pecans. As people walk by, I'm like, hey, can I interest you in some blind squirrel pecans? I love it. I thrive in it. It's fun to me. It's invigorating. The whole entrepreneurial spirit to me is fun. It's invigorating. Every day is different. Every day is a different challenge. You never know what you're going to face that day, and tomorrow won't look like it did today. To me, that's fun. When you know exactly what Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is going to look like every single week, it gets a little boring to me. I don't like the boring. So I truly believe that's where my entrepreneurial spirit comes from. That, and I also got to see how it provided for my family, and that's the way I want to provide for my family moving forward.
Hi, my name is Juanita. So first of all, thank you very much for your authenticity and acknowledging who's got you here. And who's got your back. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
So I hear that you're working with another job and you're trying to get this business going. So I'd like to know, like, if you didn't have to worry about the insurance and supporting the family with another job, what would you say that this business or your role in this business would look like in 3 to 5 years if you could envision anything you want it to be?
Anything I wanted to be, I'd be doing it full time. I would hit the road tomorrow. That's me. There's not a market in the state of Georgia that I wouldn't be sitting at, just for visibility, for at least a year or two. I would be at the Dogwood Festival in Perry, Georgia. I'd be in Blue Ridge or Ellijay next weekend doing a festival. I would be all over the place. I would be hitting boutique after boutique after boutique, going in there with my cards, letting them try my pecans. I would hit the ground running. When you get me in front of people, I love to talk. And I'm pretty personable. I'll talk to anybody. My wife, we walked into a store on our honeymoon in Blue Ridge, and I'm like, I noticed you guys sell pecans. So I actually have a company, and I'm telling these people about my pecans, and she's like, Zach, we're on our honeymoon. That doesn't mean anything. I can still talk about my nuts on the honeymoon. So sorry, that was probably inappropriate. That's a pecan joke. I love my pecan jokes. But that would be my dream. If I could hit the ground running, I would be in front of as many people. I would be telling my story. I would be sharing my pecans, because anybody who's tried the pecans, they've said, the gentleman who just asked that question, he's from Texas. Texas grows a lot of pecans too. He's never had pecans that tasted quite like mine. His daughter, who still lives in Texas, she said, I know good chocolate. She said, Zach, that chocolate's some of the best chocolate I've ever had in my life. That's what makes my product, is the quality of it. Also, with my product, a lot of times, for those of you who are shoppers, if you go into Kroger, you go into Walmart, a lot of times you see pecans on the shelf. It may be $8, but it's 9 ounces of pecans. Mine are a full 1 pound bag. You're getting 16 ounces of pecans with any bag you get from me. It's almost double what you find in the store. Now, it may be $2 more, but you're getting 7 to 9 ounces more in pecans. So that's another big thing, is I love the size of the packages that I sell. It's been a big hit. Everybody's like, oh, I love it, especially on these chocolate ones. If it was any smaller, I don't think I'd buy them.
Yeah, I have a question back here. So, Ellen, and my question is, if you had to think back to your time in school and kind of our students now taking their business courses, what is the area that you wish now, in retrospect, you had paid more attention to in school? Like, what's the thing that you think would help you the most right now if you could pull that knowledge back out?
Probably the most beneficial, truly, and I know it's probably one of the least favorite classes, is accounting. So
The accounting department head, so thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm being very serious with you. Luckily, I did grow up in a family that has had been entrepreneurs. Like I said, my dad is 3rd generation. I would be 4th. I've seen them manage their business, do their finances, do all that themselves. So I had a pretty good grasp of financial math. Percentages, all that, that's good. We start getting into calculus and you add letters in there, I'm like, that's not math. But accounting is big. And a lot of people just look at the U.S. economy. A lot of people don't understand basic accounting. If, for any of you who are interested in starting your own business, in working in the business world, I highly encourage you to pay attention in the accounting area. It's not always a fun class. I get it. I went through it. I took it. But it's very beneficial. So talk to your accounting head there. She can help you out. So. Okay.
So you talked about how the pecans are kosher. I don't know. Sorry. Okay, so you spoke about how you were interested in these pecans, and the guy who had the farm had them as marketed them as kosher. What about the ones, the chocolate and the other flavored pecans? Are they all kosher as well? And what, if anything, have you done to tap into that market? Because there's a not insignificant Jewish population in Georgia, and particularly in Atlanta and the
Mhm.
larger cities. So what have you done, or what are your plans to tap into that market with what you have available as kosher?
Right now, there's not a whole lot I've done other than when I advertise it, when I'm talking, when I speak, when I post through my Facebook, on my website, it is mentioned that they are kosher. That has been something I do want to tap into. I do believe there is a market in Georgia for kosher pecans. As you said, Atlanta has a huge Jewish community. I would love to get up there and get in some of those little, I guess you'd say, little tienda-like stores, a little small town grocery store kind of thing. That's along the lines, again, with the logistics of me not being able to sit down and call 13 different locations during a 30-minute lunch break. I can't call and have these conversations when I'm on my full-time job, and that makes things a little bit more difficult. Also, as I told you guys earlier, my wife is 7 months pregnant. We've been a little bit busy lately on our weekends. It's been a struggle for her. If she's not working, we're usually doing something around the house getting ready for the baby. So that has made things a little interesting. It is a market I would love to tap into. My plans for that would probably be I'm just going to have to call or get in front of those people because I've not really done anything there development-wise. But it is something I would love to do. It just ultimately comes down to me being able to have the conversation and have the time to have the conversation.
We also have a digital marketing program and professors sitting right here, so sometimes her class does a project.
That would be so helpful. Well, all the pecans are kosher. I need to get with him on the cannery. I do not know if he's had the rabbi go check the cannery out, but all of the pecans that go to Alabama are 100% kosher. I just have to be sure that that factory in Alabama is as well kosher. But I believe they are because he still markets them as kosher pecans. So.
Yeah, my name's Gabriel Cologne. I have an A in accounting right now, so
Okay,
I know we
what's
were just
up?
talking about that.
Keep
But,
it up, man. Keep it up. 4.0. 4.0.
In the future, though, have you considered having any other legumes or nuts on your line? Or
I have just currently. I'm really trying to focus on the pecans. Everybody loves them, and I know it's kind of my Super Bowl season runs from November to February. It is hot market for pecans. We have a lot of holidays there that really hit. Really hot market for pecans. I've thought about getting into some flavored pecans. I've even talked to my pecan guy. He's tried some almonds and stuff. He has shelled and done things with almonds, gotten some flavored and stuff like that. But it is definitely a market I'm willing and hoping to look into in the future. It's just right now I'm just really trying to develop this brand from this standpoint and get them in as many places as possible before I get, I guess you'd say, too stretched thin. Right now, the company is literally me, myself, my wife, and then my mom fills in when I need her to run pick up pecans. So, or drive me up here because, like I said, state of Georgia won't let me drive anymore.
Right here. My name is Isela. My question is, you said that a lot of people really like the chocolate of your pecans. Who came up with like the ingredients or like maybe even the recipe, or was that something that was made like out of house?
The recipe for that did come from out of house. The pecans, as I said, they are grown and shelled in Middle Georgia. My friend from high school who owns the shelling company, he transfers them all the way over to Alabama to the cannery. They then soak those pecans in a saltwater solution for 48 hours. They then take that pecan, lightly brush it in peanut oil. They put it in the oven, dust it with salt, and then they flash them with a massive amount of heat real quick, crisps up the outsides, and then they cover them in what I call the most delicious milk chocolate you've ever had in your life. It is very creamy, it's rich, it's the perfect flavor profile. Between it and the roasted salted pecan, it's just the perfect treat. So they came up with the recipe. I'm just, I guess, running with it. So.
And then I have one more question.
Yeah.
I think your story is very inspiring. I think especially other people who may have been in a similar situation in terms of losing their vision. For all of us, I think I can speak for and say that it was inspiring to see how you can still find value in yourself and still have the motivation to keep going forward. So have you ever thought maybe about giving back to maybe like a blind community?
I have. I've thought about maybe doing a fundraiser or speaking, telling my story. I have never. I've had the opportunity to share what I call my testimony, my story, in a number of locations. My mom will tell you, people ask me, well, what do you charge? I don't charge anything. It's not my story to tell. I would love to give back. I like giving back. I like sharing my story. It is my story, but it's not my story. The Lord allowed me to have my story for a purpose, and I believe it's for His glory that He let me go through what I went through. I would love to do that. I think it would be a great opportunity, and I do have a very unique story. Another one of those things that comes out there is people have to hear it and want it to be heard. I don't do a whole lot of self-promotion as far as trying to get myself speaking events because my stance on that has been lately, or has been, that when the door is supposed to be opened, it will be opened. I probably could do a little bit more there giving back, but I would love to. I've had the opportunity to meet a number of blind individuals just in my county alone. I had no clue at the number of individuals who have lost their sight later in life. In Houston County alone, there's a phone call that happens once a month with 13 individuals who have gone blind on it. 3 of those new 13 individuals, I got on there because they met me, and I'm like, hold on, let me tell you about this group that does this call once a month. You may find it encouraging. I love encouraging people with my story. I do believe my story is a story of resilience. It is unique. And again, I say, it's not mine. It's only mine because He allowed me to live it. So it is something I would love to do. I would love that opportunity.
All right, I have one more question for you, and
Yeah, man.
maybe some other people before me, but I just want to say, like, I found your story to be very, like, inspiring, and how you mentioned your story with, like, Christ and all that. I found that really inspiring and really, like, touching. And knowing how you, like, started up the company by yourself or, like, with your family and your help with your family, and you guys are still working on growing it, will you ever consider, because, like, I feel like a lot of family-run companies that start small and end up getting a lot of traction kind of, like, later on, have a lot of like merger and acquisition agreements. Do you think you would ever allow for like another company to kind of work with you or even like kind of acquire some of your business ideas? Or
I do and I don't.
yeah.
I personally, I don't want to lose control of my company. I've seen that happen. You see it on the news. I do not want to get overextended, lose too much portion of my company. I would rather stay smaller than grow so large that I don't even have a say-so in what happens anymore. So it is something I am open to. I would love all kind of resources, anything anybody can ever help me out with. And there are a lot of people out there that can be tapped into. The 2 gentlemen who helped get me here today, the Mikes, I call them the Mikes. You got tall Mike and shorter Mike. So you got 2 different Mikes. They've been huge. Those are guys that went to North Georgia with my dad. They're friends of his from college. And they've come behind me. They've had my back. They've helped me in ways I couldn't have even imagined. I am totally open and willing to have a conversation with anybody and everybody. But it's something I'd really have to pray and think about a lot because I really don't want to lose control of my company. You know, right now with me and my wife basically being the 2, it's, hey, we're doing this. And then she says, no, we're not. And I'm like, you're right. We're not going to do that. I don't even ask. So we've been married 2 years now. I don't even ask why not anymore. You're right, baby. We're not doing that. So
Yeah, I could say I'm married myself, so I understand that, like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, do you want to do this? Like, no, it was like, okay, yeah, we're not
Okay,
doing that. I didn't
yeah.
even want to do that.
well, that's like I told you guys, I've done a lot of markets. We did a multiple weekend market deal in Byron in the spring. And it happened several different weekends. Well, 3 out of the 4, my wife was able to be there with me. And by the 4th one, she's like, you got to ask me the next time you're going to sign up for 4 of these things because it kills your whole weekend. I'd be, like I said earlier, I'd be at a different one every weekend. Even working 5 days a week, it invigorates me. But my wife's like, Zach, we need a break. You worked 5 days this week. We need some time around the house or what? We got stuff we still got to do. I would be out there doing those things. And to have the resources, the opportunities, whether it be a franchisee, a salesman, a company that was willing to just solely carry my brand or help me market it, whatever it may be, it's worth having the conversation, but those are conversations I would definitely need to have. And I also, again, have to talk to my boss because she has a lot of say-so in what I do. So,
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. So 2 things. Find out if there's a Radio X show in Middle Georgia
Radio X.
because they interview business leaders.
Okay.
Great free advertising.
Okay.
And if you don't have a LinkedIn account and can get somebody to help you set one up,
Okay.
that's a great way to promote your product as well.
Okay.
We've heard that from some other speakers we've had. So
Okay.
just a couple ideas.
Yeah.
So I think you should just do a podcast yourself because people
Everybody keeps telling me to write a book, and I'm like, I don't want to write a book.
But thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing
absolutely.
your story, being part of us, and we're just
Absolutely.
delighted to have you on.
Well,
campus.
thank you guys.
Thank you.